All right, and
wait, so
we
this
are
isn't me?
live. Everybody say hello.
Hello, hello.
The bandwidth instantly dropped.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
All right, guys. First thing up on the docket is an icebreaker. Who's your favorite comic book character and why? I'm going to segue to Justin.
I'm
I
gonna
thought we were
bounce
introducing
to Sam.
ourselves.
We could do it either or.
I thought we were introducing ourselves. What are we doing?
If you guys reviewed the itinerary, the icebreakers first, but you know.
I'm
I
lost.
have it pulled up. I'm on the itinerary, man. I'll have to bounce to Sam though. I don't know who my favorite character
You guys have
is.
itineraries?
Maybe we should restart.
Cut.
No. We're in it now. So
Here's the thing.
deal.
I can just edit this to just skip all that, and we can just start over.
Problem is,
Okay,
you're
okay.
freezing. Like, bandwidth is terrible right now.
Ooh. Let's see.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm good.
Looks like it's just me. What Wi-Fi am I connected to? All
I'm about
right.
to say mine is fine right here, bro.
Yeah.
All right. Take 3.
All right, and hello again. My name is Ben McElroy. Sam, introduce yourself. F in the chat to pay respect.
Can we get an F in the chat?
Here's the deal. Really, we should just keep all the bloopers.
Hell yeah. All right.
Okay. Let's try this one more time.
I'll introduce
from the top.
myself.
Go
Sam
ahead.
will introduce himself. Justin will introduce himself. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello, my name is Ben.
I'm Sam, certified fire extinguisher.
Justin, certified fire starter.
Love that.
Awesome.
Love that for me.
All right, guys. Icebreaker question is, who's your favorite comic book character and why? Sam, you want to kick it off?
How in the weeds do you want me to get on this?
30 seconds.
We'll go with Spider-Man with an asterisk.
Why?
He's the best.
Hooray!
Bro, you cannot tell me that if you could swing on buildings with webs and climb up walls, you would not be thrilled. Not to mention the fact that he literally is one of the strongest people in the Marvel universe.
Big facts. All right, Justin.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of really good ones. I might just have to say Batman just for the memes. Like, I like what Batman's about. I like his vision, and I also like his methods, bro. I think there's something to be said about beating someone senseless and then saying, now talk. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just
Makes a lot of
for
sense.
sure.
Okay.
I swear to me.
All right. I got to definitely go with Superman being my favorite superhero. Just the comics, the lore, the powers, the abilities. Top tier for me.
I need to mute all my notifications, but apparently I can't. So.
All right, guys. So let's get into our introductions. My name is Ben McElroy. I'm a 23-year-old Virginian resident. I work in the solar industry. My favorite color is hot pink, and my favorite movie is Gladiator. It's a pretty uncontroversial opinion around men. Sam?
This is a safe space for that.
We're here for it.
Can you repeat all of that? No. I lost my itinerary when I closed out Safari for the sake of bandwidth. So let's try this again. Justin, you
You're
go.
gonna kill him.
All right. My name is Justin Woodcock. I'm 23. I'm in the financial industry. I do financial planning, investment advising. Born and raised in Michigan. Love the mitten. For you Mitten people, I'm from over here. Live in Virginia now, Richmond area. Absolutely love it. My favorite color is definitely just me blue, like any shade of blue. Love me some blue. My favorite movie is definitely a toss-up. I would have to say maybe if we're just firing off, I'm gonna have to go Django Unchained. I think Jamie Foxx plays the character so well. There's so many badass scenes. It's good. We'll put it that way.
In the illustrious words of Baron Zemo, he's out of line, but he's correct. Wait, no, excuse me, that was Falcon.
That was a misquote.
Misquote.
That was a misquote.
Misquote.
Get this guy out of here.
Just kidding. Django Unchained is a phenomenal movie. My name is Sam Edwards. I am a local real estate agent. I'm originally from Florida, but now live in Richmond, Virginia. Also, like Justin, I love it. My favorite color is either going to be deep navy blue or deep purple. And favorite movie, that's a tough one. I'm going to keep it uncontroversial and say Star Wars. I'm not going to say which one.
That's a safe bet. Yeah.
Safe bet.
Okay. So guys, all three of us are on the podcast today because we're all entrepreneurs. And that's kind of what we kind of gather around to talk about is like what got us into being entrepreneurs, what got us into our respective fields. Justin, do you want to tackle that one first?
Sure. I'll go ahead and take a stab at this one first. Really, I don't know. Ever since I was younger, I always had dreams about working for myself or being self-employed. It always seemed like the way to go. I know that I never wanted to be locked in at a desk and kind of just being barked at and told what to do. And don't get me wrong, it's not like that's what every single hierarchy is like, but some of the ones that I have been engaged with, that's kind of what I was bumping into. So really that drove me to want to be, rely on myself, develop a business model that was based upon what I want. And that is really what I have found doing what I do now. I make my own schedule, I deal with my own clients. I come up with my own processes. Really what drove me into being an entrepreneur was just the desire for more freedom.
I muted myself at a really inopportune time there. I love your answer, man. I was actually muting myself.
Did I say something wrong?
I muted myself so I could take some notes so I could come back to that question. One of the things that you said that really spoke out to me was like, you're making your own schedule, you're making your own processes. Like, where did you get the knowledge and where did that journey start for you? Because when I started down that hole, it was a bumpy ride to write out a schedule for myself and stick to it. Because when nobody's there to keep me accountable and I could sit at home and play Xbox all day, how do you get the drive to actually get up and go? Obviously rent do be due, but other than that.
Hey man, what does Caged Elephant say? Bills to pay, mouths to feed. There's nothing in this world for free. Honestly, man, I struggle with the same exact thing. It's so hard to, when you're in when you have the capability to just decide, I'm going to wake up and do nothing today and no one is going to get on my back about it. I could just turn on my Xbox right now and who's going to bat an eyelash? My girlfriend might not like that, but my boss isn't going to care, But for me, I guess it really came down to when I started doing this, I had no idea how to create a schedule for myself. I'm notorious for just doing whatever I want and finding it really, really hard to stick to a laid out schedule. So even my schedule now is super flexible, but I basically tell myself, if no one is going to do this, then you're not going to do it. Or I guess if you're not going to do it, the only person you're letting down is yourself. That's another big thing about being, self-employed is you're not letting a team down, I guess, but it's even worse. The only person you're letting down or aiding and abetting and failing is yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to come back to a couple things you said, but I want to ask the same question to Sam. Sam, what got you into entrepreneurship?
Instead of working 9 to 5, I wanted to choose which 18 hours a day I work. No, I'm completely kidding. Although that is what ends up happening. So I when I was 17, I knew I wanted to start my own business, and we'll do another podcast and talk about how kind of that came to be. But ended up in a really, really great leadership group. Basically, lots of different business owners giving mindset on how to successfully manage and grow a business. And one of the things that I was taught was anywhere you work, if you're working full time for someone else or even part time, treat it like it's your own business and learn everything you can. Go the extra mile, manage your schedule, treat it like you own your own business. So when I transitioned from working in sales full time to full time real estate, aside from the pandemic being a little bit and everything that came with that, the transition was relatively natural, and I felt really at peace because I'd been doing a lot of the habits that come with owning your own business. It was more so now I wasn't really answering to anybody else. I was answering to myself, which, to Justin's thing, it's still very easy, even if when you know what to do, to say, you want to what, like, instead of going to bed at a reasonable time, like, I'll stay up because there's things to do and go to bed at 2 and then suffer the next morning. So
Yeah.
I
think it's that.
yourself.
All right, there was a little bit of an audio scramble there. Justin, what'd you just say?
All I said was guilty, Your Honor. That's all.
We all are, for sure. So, one of the things you guys both really harped on that, like, the allure of entrepreneurship pulled to you was like the autonomy and the individuality of your schedule and what you were able to do. And as someone who worked a plethora of different jobs, hourly and otherwise, for other people, that was one of my biggest frustrations. Is I had so little autonomy in when I was scheduled, what my hours were. It was somebody else trying to juggle 15 to 20 employees and saying, all right, we need people here for these times, throw something at a board, see what sticks. And as a college student, as a high schooler, in between, like, those schedules were not ideal for my lifestyle, for what I wanted to achieve. And nobody wants to drive, to work from 12 to 3 p.m., especially when you commute an hour there and back to work. And so that was one of the things that really, like, sparked for me, was I was like, all right, like, I have the ability to say, hey, I'm going to work these hours, but I also have the freedom to say, hey, like, this is my day. I don't want to do anything, or I'm going to take a personal day. Like, I don't have to clear that with anyone except for my wife. And so that was just something I wanted to touch on.
I also have to clear my schedule with Ben's wife.
She really is in the world. We just don't know it yet. So as Justin is the only non-married person here with us today, treasure these moments.
Yeah. So
I'm on the opposite end. Can't wait.
No. So it's, being married is a blast. But I was told this when I was 17, and I wish I took the advice. When you're 18 to 23, it is the most free you'll ever be. You don't have, like, even if you're paying for everything, you have no responsibility outside of yourself. So and Gary Vee talks about this all the time too, like, if you lose your job and you have a car, like, it's just you. You can live out in your car if you need to. Like, you have really no one to stop you from grinding or doing whatever. And I know grind is overused right now, but let's say you're starting something and you're like, you want to what? I'm working 9 to 5. I need, like, 5 to 2 a.m. needs to be the time to grow my own business. There's no one really stopping you. You have no pulls. Like, if don't have a girlfriend, it's not like, oh, I have this obligation, I have family. It's just you. You get married, and then it's okay. Still, potentially, you have very little responsibility, but then you also have someone else relying on you. Then you have kids, and now you have someone who's truly responsible for you. You're truly responsible for. So being married is a blast, but at the end of the day, I can't tell my wife, hey, like, I can't just get up and disappear for a week because I need to do something in my business and I want to go to Florida and do something. I'm responsible to her too.
No, this is a very real concept. My brother and I talk about this a lot because I did move across the country basically at the drop of a hat. And it was such an interesting thing that like nobody stopped me. Not even a lot of my friends even know. Like, through COVID, like there was just so much distancing and communication and the frequency with which you see people. Like, I basically made the decision to move to Virginia from Illinois within a couple weeks and did it. And I was able to do that because my job moved out here. I didn't have to worry about anything. I got an apartment, slowly moved my stuff over here, and now I live here. But my brother wants to come out here, and because he has 2 kids, a wife, and a job, like his family's there, his friends are there, his community's there, the people that babysit for him are out there. He's tied down in ways that I was not. And so, that's where being an entrepreneur, especially a young entrepreneur, is very alluring.
I would say that it's arguably the best time. I mean, it's never too late to become an entrepreneur, and it's not like I can certainly speak from that much experience. Granted, I mean, you and I are the same age, Ben. We're 23. We still got a long way to go. I mean, Sam, you got a couple more years on us, but still, I mean, just from the limited experience I have now, I would say it's never too late. Obviously, if you want to do it, you should do it. But at the same time, this age is so prime because you're right. You don't have kids. You're not tied down. You don't have any huge obligations, typically speaking. It's really easy to kind of chase that dream.
100%. One thing I do want to ask that I think would be useful is, what is your guys' education backgrounds?
Good one. Wait, you guys have
Sam,
education?
You want to answer? Not me.
Can we name this podcast "Wait, You Guys Have Jobs?" ?
I think that'd be great.
Wait, you guys have jobs? My education background is high school and college. I started out as a music education major in college, and just found out today that I was a nerd. And then I switched to exercise science because I want to have 2 degrees that you can't really do much with, or 2 majors you don't do much with. So, bachelor's degree in exercise science, focus in kinesiology, and was the most expensive dating service that I've ever signed up for, but I met my wife out of it, so it was great. Not using my degree at all.
Okay. Hey, Sam, I don't want to interrupt our podcast, but you definitely need to check your messages from your wife.
For the love.
I'm going to mute you for the foreseeable future. Justin, you want to go ahead and tackle that one too? Uh-oh. Justin. Hey, Justin. Justin.
Guys.
Hey, can you hear me, Justin?
Hello. Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, dude. You froze for like a minute, and I was just staring at like a pixelated version of you going like this. No, you're good. Sam's on the phone with his wife. Education. What's your background?
Education background would be, obviously went to high school, finished high school. I was a really trashy student, not because I didn't have the capacity to be a good student, but I just literally thought I was like too cool for school, or thought like homework was for people who didn't understand concepts. And so I was like, whatever, like I'm not going to do my homework. And then started like failing classes and was like, okay, I don't really understand what's going on. Like I'm getting, I aced my tests, and that was a really hard lesson early on about like you cannot slack on your work even if you think it's simple, or there are necessary components to whatever you do, education especially, that you cannot skip on. And then after that, went to Western Michigan University, 2016, my first year out there. Got paired up with a great roommate. Went in thinking I wanted initially to do integrated supply chain management. Western's business school was great for that. ended up having my focused shift to finance, and kind of started taking that route in school and in Western before I finished my bachelor's. Had a couple things arise. Is Sam trying to get back in here?
I'm going to run. Ben, I will be back in 15 minutes, and I might need your help.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, buddy.
Can people see the chat? No, it's private.
No.
Wonderful. All right, I'm out.
God. Okay. Thank you, Justin.
So anyways,
now that the cool kids are here.
Right, now that it's just the two of us.
Yeah.
So anyways, took a step back, got really disillusioned with, like, is this even what I want? You know, like, I had no question about my passion for these things, but, you know, wasn't quite sure if I wanted to finish out or whatever. Ended up, you know, working a couple different jobs, cutting my teeth in a bunch of different sectors. And just before I became a financial advisor this past January, you know, so I got licensed with my life, health, and annuities, got my Series 65, was really ready to throw myself at this. I had thought about doing this for a while. The stars were really starting to align. So I got licensed, got certified. And I actually, before I even knew that this was going to be an opportunity to me, had applied to University of Amsterdam because I was like, I'm going back to school, you know, forget all this finance nonsense. I want to be involved in civil service, politics. Applied to University of Amsterdam for a 3-year program for law, economics, philosophy, political science, and actually didn't hear back from them. Pretty much wrote it off. I was like, dude like me, like, no way they're going to want me. And ended up accepting this position here in Richmond, you know, moved out here on a whim. And right as I had gotten started, you know, within like my first week or two, being an advisor, I got an email from them saying I had been accepted for the upcoming fall semester, you know, and my initial goal was to run that program for 3 years. My girlfriend would move to Amsterdam with me, and I'd come back and still be in this area, but be working in DC. And I kind of just had to make that decision, man. I was like, you know, I'm in these shoes now. You worked hard to get here. And I ended up turning it down. Obviously, I'm here now. You know, I'm not in the Netherlands, but that's my educational background. I'd still love to go back to school, man. I don't have any qualms with people who get their bachelor's, get their master's. I actually think it's fantastic. And I want one myself. I just don't think that I was mature enough and ready enough to take that plunge at that moment, and kind of had some things to figure out about myself. And I'm happy where I'm at. You know, I took the entrepreneur route. But that being said, I still want to round out my resume with a degree at some point.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. I can relate in a lot of ways. I am 3.8 years into a 4-year degree, and through COVID,
You're close.
I'm so close, but I can't imagine myself going back. I have more than enough credits to graduate. The person that was making my schedule at my college was a college professor who had that responsibility dropped upon him, and he wasn't very good at it. And so I ended up taking over a year's worth of classes that I don't necessarily need. So I have the credits to graduate. I just have a certain number of required classes that I have to take. And the way that those classes stack is I could knock them all out in one semester, but I have to take 2 of the classes before I can take 2 of the other classes. So I have at least a year of school left to go. And after entering the workforce, getting married, becoming an entrepreneur, moving across the country, making much more in entrepreneurial endeavors than I would have, you know, working with this degree, it's kind of hard for me to justify taking time to go back and complete something that I don't know that I'll ever use. It's nice to be able to, like, you know, point here and say, hey, here's my Bachelor of Arts in history, but they're not exactly hiring at the local history plant down the street. And so, you know, as far as like a job
area,
like,
compensating you handsomely either.
Right, exactly. And so, you know, for me, I wasn't a great student in high school or in college, and I really wish I knew now and understood now what I do, but back then, because I definitely came at school, I came at my approach to knowledge, I came at my approach to learning from such a task oriented, all right, I just need to do this to graduate. Like, I don't care. Like, maybe some of these classes I even really enjoy, but I'm still going to procrastinate. I'm still going to put off the assignments. I'm still going to like stay out till midnight playing tag at the college campus. Super fun. Had a blast. Not productive or beneficial in ways that I could have been spending that time. And so, for me, it's one of these things where experience and understanding are worth more in the marketplace than a piece of paper. And that's something that I've heard multiple business owners in multiple different states and multiple different areas talk about. Is they're like, hey, like, it's one thing to go to school and get a master's in business, like an MBA. That looks great on a resume. That does differentiate you from other people. But a master's in the business administration and someone that's been working for 3 years in that role, I'm going to pick the guy that's done it for 3 years every single day, because a college experience is not actually preparing you for the roles. It's telling you what it's going to be like. And I just thought that that was so true in almost all of my college classes, was that this was not an adequate preparation for real life. It was just a standardized test to say, hey, if you can meet these metrics, you're likely to be successful. And I think experience is better than anything else.
I would definitely agree. One thing that I really struggled with a lot was I absolutely love learning. And it surprises people a lot when I tell them I haven't finished school, because I strike them as like, somebody who's into academics or is educated. And I would say that's because I just love learning so much. I never gave up even after I left school. I just wasn't doing it in a classroom setting, whether I was doing it through my workplace, whether I was, going to the library or reading the news or doing whatever. I never stopped, because personally, I feel like you should always be learning. There's always more that you can learn. There's always better ways that you can better yourself.
100%.
But what I really struggled with was, you can learn so much in school, so much book knowledge, if you will, book smarts or whatever. Like, they're going to teach you exactly how to do things, like what something is. If, in the case of business or finance, if you're going to school for a finance degree, they're going to talk to you all about economics, accounting, all of that stuff. You're going to know the ins and outs of financially how a business operates, but they don't teach you how to run a business, or they don't teach you how to operate in the workplace. They just give you the knowledge. So I feel like a lot of times you come out with your degree feeling really empowered, and then before you can even get into your job, they're asking you, like, let's see 3 years of work experience. Let's see 5 years of work experience. Let's see certifications. And, kids are coming out and they're like, what is this, man? Like, I just did 4 years. Now where am I supposed to get this experience? I can't get the experience without the education, and I can't get the job without the, just one big rotating wheel. So I feel like I got really, really vital experience. But I still kind of grapple with, like, it is just a piece of paper, but to a certain degree, like, I want that. It's almost like validation,
Yeah, no. So my father is an engineer, and he has a bachelor's degree. And my brother has a bachelor's degree, 2 master's degree, and he got accepted to a Fulbright for a PhD.
Good for
And
him.
I was like, yeah, no, absolutely. My brother is, very well educated. The thing that like strikes me about that, and I remember having this conversation with my dad. I was like, Dad, like, in a year I'm going to be as educated as you, like, and it was such a weird thing for like 21-year-old me at the time to look at my dad and say, hey, like, you and me, like, in the workforce, if blank sheet of paper, just our degrees, we're like equal. But that doesn't encompass my dad having run his own business, successful careers as a mechanic, as a technician, as an engineer for 20 years. He's got 30 years of life experience on me. Even though on paper, he and I have the same level of education. He's got continuing education with Caterpillar. He's got in the workforce knowledge. He's got training on CAD. He's got training in all these programs that aren't listed on his, hey, you graduated this degree, this school with this degree. And so, like, I met a guy the other day, and you know what he said to me? He's like, Ben, I graduated YouTube University, summa cum laude. And it really was like, why did I spend $20,000+ going to school when everything that I learned I could have just gotten for free in some form, And that's not to say that like it's the same experience, and I don't want to defer people from college. Like, college can be an extraordinary experience and very beneficial. But my brother is a great example. His bachelor's is a politics, philosophy, and economics degree. And when he graduated, he's like,
okay.
I don't know what that degree is good for. I'm going to go back to school and get an MBA. Then I'm going to go back to school and get a different master's degree. And just because I have the credits and I could, like, here's a school that's going to offer me to go to school for free to get my PhD. He's getting all these degrees, but there's no focus of like, all right, like, I want to do this, and then figuring out what's beneficial to that. Like, it's kind of a blanket, I don't know what I want to do yet, so let's defer that decision. And for me, it was like, I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life, but I know it's not teaching kids history in a school. Like, I love history, and I'll talk about it till I'm blue in the face, but that's not going to be my passion for the next 30 years. Kids these days are terrifying. So,
yeah, man, they're a handful. I think it sounds like, you're saying something along the same lines. If I can just say it in a different manner, is I think whatever you choose to do is fantastic. I certainly don't want to deter anyone from going to school, because that's not the case. If you want to go to school, you absolutely should, because there are certain professions that you should not be able to do without at least at minimum a bachelor's degree, if not more. I mean, there are people out there where you need to be well educated and well versed in a true professional academic setting. Okay. But that being said, I don't want to deter anyone from being an entrepreneur either. If you feel like that's the route that's best for you, then there should be nothing stopping you. What I am saying is, you should learn. One of the most important lessons that was taught to me, and I use it in determining client relationships, but a lot of times when you start out, you're trying to qualify. You're working really hard to make sure that this relationship is worth it, whether it's with a client, you're just networking or whatever. You're trying to qualify, you're trying to make it worthwhile. I would say whether you are networking or deciding what you want to do with the rest of your life, you need to learn how to disqualify. So for me, that means when I'm working with someone and it seems like we're either not the right fit, or simply we just have schedule conflicts, you need to know when to disqualify so that you can move to someone who's going to work really well with you. And you should do the same with your personal life, your educational life. If you know in your heart that you do not want a bachelor's degree, then you should disqualify that as an option, or at least put it on the back burner until you try something else. Maybe you want to go to trade school. Even by saying that, by not going to school, that doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur. Okay. Then nobody teaches you how to run a business or how to manage things on your own. It's certainly not easy. So do I think everyone is cut for it? No. But if you want to give it a try, then that's the only way you're going to know.
Yeah. One thing I will say is I was very, very blessed early in my life to have the support of not just my parents, but of my first several jobs to encourage and provide an environment that rewarded me for thinking proactively and thinking outside the box. I can think of several of my first jobs through high school and out of high school where I applied and I was talking myself out of applying for jobs because I wasn't qualified. I saw these requirements for some of these jobs, and it was like, first of all, I had to be 21 and up for some of these jobs. I was like 17 and a half. I was supposed to have, military experience or, whatever it was. And I remember sitting in the parking lot before my interview, reading over all this, and I was talking myself out of it. I was like, I should not even show up. And I talked myself into it. And I was like, you know what? Worst they can do is say no. I went in, I interviewed. I beat out like 13 other applicants who were all 10 years older than me with everything else. And some of the things that the guy that hired me spoke about was like my willingness to learn, my eagerness to improve myself and to improve in ways that he, you know, like whether he saw a little bit of me in him 20 years ago, the guy was an entrepreneur who started 3 or 4 successful businesses and similar path. And so I was very honored to like have him be such a formative experience of mine, because he encouraged me to think of my job there as my own business. And he gave me a lot of autonomy that, like, in hindsight, maybe I shouldn't have had, but he showed me how to run a business, how to do accounting, how to manage supply and demand, inventory, how to talk with marketers and the people that are bringing products in and out. Like, I was shown the ropes at a very young age, and I became a crucial part of his business, and it was awesome. You know, I was doing stuff that my friends have 6-year degrees to like be able to go and do for a company, and I'm like, I was doing that 3 years ago, like, and it's not a competition. Like, everyone goes through stages in life, and like, not everything's going to be a like clear upward and onwards projection. But that was such a thing in me that instilled the hope and the idea of like owning my own business, doing all those things, because I saw the freedom that came with it. I have so many stories with that guy, and I'll make a whole podcast episode about that. I got
that sounds like it's worth a podcast episode on its own.
Yeah, I mean, I got a roadmap for how to successfully run a business. And then my job right after that in a similar field with people that knew each other, I had such a negative experience and such a roadmap on what not to do with your company, what not to do with your employees, how not to treat people. Like, I got reprimanded multiple times for doing more than my job required of me. And that like hurt my brain. I was like, I'm in trouble because I did more than what you asked of me. Like, like if I fulfilled all my duties for the day, I did something else proactively, I was reprimanded. And I was like, why would I work harder? It was just such an interesting thing for me. And I'm curious, Justin, like, with you being on your own right now, like, do you foresee any big struggles with like, growing your team, growing a business? Like, how, obviously new experiences all around, but if you were to grow like your team, what would it look like?
I would say if I were to grow my team, I would certainly look for people who were qualified, but qualified in the sense that I see bits of myself in them, and I think they have the traits and characteristics that allowed me to succeed this far, and provided me with the drive to keep pushing, to keep growing what I am doing. My team would be selected based off of merit. I mean, off of like what their track record says or what they're capable of. Would you need a 4-year degree? I mean, not necessarily. Obviously, in what we do, you need to have the correct amount of certifications, and even on top of that, you need to have a level of background knowledge that's going to help you actually work with people in a real world application. You can't just take these tests, get certified, and then expect to, be some stellar financial advisor. But I will just say, I would absolutely pick my team based off of just how I thought that they could perform. Maybe there's someone who's getting skipped over time and time again simply because, they're just not rocking their interviews. And who knows? I mean, maybe that guy just has huge anxiety problems. Maybe he just gets nervous when he goes into the interview. And the second you bring him on board or you give him a chance, he becomes an absolutely stellar advisor or salesman or what have you.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be willing to take a chance on people to figure out if they really have the capability that you think they do or not. I'm not super big on disqualifying people immediately. I mean, unless there's some major red flags, like you're a felon or something, or I don't know. But if I feel like you've got potential, then who am I to waste that, or at least hinder you in trying?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's good insight for sure. One of the things that I wanted to touch on was like you were saying, like, hey, like in the interview process, like businesses, especially small business, is a human experience. There's a big difference between interviewing for Walmart and interviewing for the coffee truck outside my apartment. That coffee truck is made up of people that have real experiences and they're there for each other. And don't get me wrong, there's like serious cons to working at a small business. And that's not to like, I love small business. I'm a small business, support small business. But like it's a different experience. And if you go in there and you're a human being to the person that's interviewing you and you're driven, they see the merit more than what's on your piece of paper. And I think that's a really important thing to understand is like, again, like in none of the situations, like even the job that got me to where I am now in the renewable energy industry, like I read the website and I read the job application. It was like, we expect you to have a 4-year degree, experience and knowledge prior to in the field. Like you need to be good at communication. You need to be good at this, and this. I was a history major at a school working 2 other part-time jobs trying to make ends meet. And I applied twice and they never got back to me. I sent them my resume on 3 different websites, like never heard anything. And I called the website and I was like, hey, my name is Ben McElroy. This is who I am. This is where I'm from. I think I would be a great fit for your guys' company. I've read your values. I think I'm in alignment with that. I would love an interview. Please call me back. The owners reached out to me the next day. And
I think that just speaks to one, obviously they can tell the authenticity, the genuineness, just a simple voicemail. But 2, your willingness to go outside of your comfort zone and say, you know what? I know I'm not qualified. Like, I know I'm not hitting these parameters. It doesn't matter. I'm going to shoot my shot anyways. I
100%.
think there's something to be said about that.
And I've applied and never heard back. I've been rejected. Like I didn't get into Harvard. I'm not going to cry for the rest of my life that Harvard didn't take me. As an example, I never applied to Harvard. There was never a shot in hell. Yeah, shifting gears a little bit though, Justin, one of the things we as entrepreneurs, like I believe should prioritize is personal development and also business development, but those 2 typically go hand in hand. What are some of the ways you as an individual and as an entrepreneur really pursue personal development? Like what avenues do you go to?
I pursue personal development through uncomfortable situations a lot. I'm a firm believer that growth arises when you are uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable with what you're doing, more than likely it means you're growing. Obviously you might be uncomfortable if you're doing something wrong. If that's the case, you should probably stop because it's probably illegal or something. But I'm talking about when you're doing something brand new that you've never done before, and you wake up every morning and you're not necessarily dreading it, but you're like, oh my gosh, like this just feels weird. Like I don't know. Day in and day out, doing all this new stuff, and I don't know if it's working for me, and you start to get all, anxious about it. And I think seeing that through to the end really is a great way to develop personal growth for myself. You have to put yourself out there. I do a lot of things on a daily that a lot of people would probably be like, what the hell are you doing? Like that would make me so uncomfortable. And it's like, the thing is, it makes me uncomfortable too, but like, I have to do it. It's the only way I'm going to survive. It's the only way I'm going to grow or learn more. Maybe I fail. Maybe I do something brand new and absolutely flop at it. At least I learned, like I got good notes from it,
No. Yeah.
Go ahead. No. I was just going to say, sorry. I judge my growth and how I am growing pretty much based off of, how good of a person am I being and how good of a service am I providing to my clients, my friends, my family. I was thankful enough to have 2 really, really great mentors and bosses before I had this job. Sous chef for 2 years. And the owner of the restaurants that I was working at was just like absolutely phenomenal. Excuse me. I love the way he treated the employees, love the way he treated me, learned a lot about running a small business, being involved hands-on. And after that, I was working with my father, kind of doing some behind the scenes finance and a little hands-on work for him. He has a contracting company, 30 to 40 employees. And obviously working alongside him, I got to see true character development, like firsthand, and really, further my personal definition of what growth is. So, I mean, just like you said, you had a great boss. Thankfully, I was very, very lucky to be placed with two people who taught me what I wanted to see out of myself when I was growing, and what to recognize when I thought maybe I was growing in the wrong direction, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. There's so much of life and life lessons that bleeds into and affects how we conduct ourselves, and the experiences that you have, that's what you draw back on to like push forward. And no, I mean, I can imagine working with family was a different hierarchy, as you said earlier. Um,
Yeah, there's a reason that
but
didn't work out,
right,
but
and yeah, we can delve into that. But for those starting out, don't be afraid to ask questions wherever you are, whether you're like working a job in high school, early job in college, like wherever you're at, like just you going to whoever you report to and saying, hey, like I understand that these are my roles. I want to have just have a human conversation and say, I'm interested in growth. And I don't know if that's going to correlate into financial growth with this company, but how do I grow in this position? And this is something I did at every one of the jobs that I've ever had, above and beyond the duties that I was asked to perform. Obviously make sure before you have this conversation that you're performing those duties to their full extent, and that you are, satisfied and, pleased with the work that you're doing. But going to them and saying, hey, what more can I do? What can I learn? Do you need help with this? Do you need help with something? That's such a rare trait in this society, in this environment that we seem to have created in the workplace, where there's a lot of entitlement that goes around, and there's a lot of just the willingness to accept where you're at and not question it and not push for more. I've asked and challenged a lot of my friends and peers throughout the years, like, hey, why aren't you doing more? Why aren't you, like, you've been at this job 3 years longer than me. Why am I making more money than you? And that was a weird example because we all started off at minimum wage, but I'd worked there less than a third of the time. Like, I feel as though, like, you know, what was I doing that they weren't doing? And the answer was I was willingly undertaking more responsibility. And I'll touch on responsibility a little bit. I don't want to talk forever on responsibility, but the other big thing is reading. Um, that's something that I hated as a kid. I hated when school made me read. As a history major, I had projects where I had to like at least skim like 30 plus different historical books and articles, and it's horrible. And I did the bare minimum every time. I was like, all right, what do I need to read in this book to pass this class? But since stepping out, since making the stand on entrepreneurship and starting my own business, like, you quickly realize that even with years of preparation and thinking things, like, life comes quick and you need to be continuously growing, or you're going to you're going to fall behind. And so, Justin, like, is there anything in particular that you've read or listened to or studied that's really stuck out and helped you grow?
Yeah, Ben, that's a great question. There's a lot that I've read, listened to, that has helped me grow. I think if to start it off, if I'm going to talk purely in like a book setting, something that I have read, there's two that stick out to me right off the rip. One of them is, I don't want to say I'm reluctant to talk about, but it's just I think some people swear by this book and say it's the be all to end all, and I kind of have a different philosophy about it. Have you ever heard of the book Think and Grow Rich?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Napoleon Hill, the author, was a notorious scam artist, like absolute bum. Defrauded multiple individuals, ran multiple unsuccessful businesses, yet preached this philosophy of if you basically fake it until you make it, eventually one day you will make it and it will be real. And rather than subscribe to the philosophy of, well, we can just manifest these things, or if I just think about it hard enough, then it's going to come to me. I think it's more important to understand and break that down a little more as to like why would that happen. So like for me, what I really took away from reading that book was I put myself in the mindset of I set my goals, I give them actual numbers, actual specific descriptions, so that my goals are as specific as can be. And I do. I mean, I think about them every day. I think about them every night. I am quote unquote manifesting them. But to take it a level further, it's just because I set those goals, I'm manifesting them through my own actions. It's not like they're coming about because I'm simply thinking about them and then I will think and grow rich. It's I will think and make myself rich. If I have my goals and I think about my goals, then I will work as hard as possible to reach them. Yes. Yeah. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
No. I'll weigh in a little bit because I've listened to Think and Grow Rich. I've not read the physical text. As someone with ADHD, I'll say Audible's been an awesome tool that's really helped me make more use of the time that I find myself behind the wheel. And it's been an awesome tool. You know, I've replaced about 50% of the time that I'm listening to music to listening to something else, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a debate, whatever it is. I'm trying to diversify that which I listen to, because as awesome as music is, it's not growing me as an individual. That said, I have found that listening to an audiobook is not a replacement to actually reading. And again, as someone that's struggled my entire life to sit down and be focused, that's been a big challenge for me. And I've devoted myself, starting 10 days ago, part of the program I'm on is 10 pages of reading a day. And, that's 750 pages by the time I'm done. And I'm almost through a book already just doing that. And so that's been awesome. But one of the things in the book I'm reading, it's called Atomic Habits by James Clear.
I've heard of it.
It's an awesome book. I highly, highly recommend it. If you have any kind of intentionality with, one day starting your own business, with just thinking and with dedicating yourself to anything, I highly recommend this book. But one of the core tenets of the book is it's all about how you build success and how you build successful habits. And one of the things is it's really good for you to sit down and set out clear, defined goals that you discuss, you think about, you talk about. That's a really important thing that I'm really glad Justin does with all his clients, because there's value in that 100%. But the next step is to say, all right, I want to do X. What's everything that I need to do to get to X? And am I doing those things? And like putting the reps in, doing the work. Sam said it earlier. He said grinding. Everyone says grinding now. Like, I'm out grinding. Bro, you're on Instagram 4 hours a day. Like, we see you. But
yeah,
we delude ourselves so easily into thinking that we're doing productive, strategic work, when in reality we're prolonging the actual effort. And you were talking earlier about getting out there, feeling awkward, feeling embarrassed. Like, this podcast has not been flawless from start to finish, but it's something that we decided we were going to do. And even when the opportunity arose to just say, you know what, let's come back tomorrow, we were like, no, we're going to do it. And next time we'll be more prepared. Next time we'll be a little bit better. We'll have a little bit better internet. I won't have this really awkward lighting. We can adjust for those things, but just the act of doing it is worth so much more than thinking about it.
Right. I don't know if this is the right analogy to make at this point in time, but like my boy Bob Ross says, there's no such thing as mistakes. There's just happy little accidents. And if you take that in a grander sense, this podcast, for example, was doing it today, maybe when we were a little unprepared, a mistake? No, I don't think so at all, because I wanted to push to get it done today. Maybe it was a happy little accident. Maybe we were a little unprepared, but now we know for next time. We would have just prolonged this a day, a week, a month, and then we would have ran it for the first time, and it still would have gone, maybe not so smoothly. So 100%. I think you're 100% correct. You just need to get out there and try it.
I'm getting more 100% entrepreneur. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. What?
I lost you on the internet there for a second. Say it again.
Oh no, I'm so sorry I cut you off, and then I was trying to.
No, you're fine. There's a slight audio lag between Justin and I, so sometimes we talk over each other. It sounded like you were going to ask me a question. You were asking me, what about?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, what about you? You know, what have you been reading recently, or what are you doing for your challenge? I will say, the next thing on my list, I don't know if this is on yours, is the 48 Laws of Power. The most recent thing I've done is Leaders Eat Last, the fantastic book. Pretty much, I don't want to spoil it for everyone. I'm really big on people like reading it themselves, but really helps you develop internally your skills as a leader. And the whole premise is the author, goes to a unit in the Marine Corps and asks why Marines are such good soldiers. Why are they so adept at following orders? And the unit commander simply, all he has to say is, well, leaders eat last. That's it. In the mess hall, we eat last. And it just, from there, trickles down into layers upon layers upon layers of being a good leader. So that's another good read that I've had. But I mean, tell me about, what are you listening to? What are you reading? What do you have going on?
Yeah. I was really blessed in the previous position that I had, the company, and I was part of the management of that company. And we made a dedicated shift to really prioritize personal development of everyone at the company. And that was really cool to see even the owners like get behind this movement and this push. And one of the things we did was we had to read 2 books a month as a company. And every Friday we'd sit down at a meeting. Every Monday and Friday we'd sit down and we'd talk about what we were reading, where we were, what books we were reading, what we'd learned. And I did book reports. We all had to do a book report on every book. And it wasn't like a couple pages or it was like 2 paragraphs. But it was like, hey, what'd you take away from this? Because you spent your own personal time outside of work to do this. What were you doing? And so I've read probably 15 to 20 books this year, which has been awesome. That's way more than I've read in the last several years combined. And the big 3 books that I've read so far this year that just like blew my mind, changed my perspective. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. Just such a different way of looking at your life and really making you analyze what you think about certain things in your life. That just like, it's really important when you're reading things to not necessarily abandon your core beliefs, but to be very open to challenging those beliefs, because there's certain things that I've been taught since I was a little kid that like I just held as gospel. And now that like I've entered into a whole different lifestyle, a whole different area, like it runs contrary to that. And just, not being so narrow minded as to just shut down a different viewpoint or a different mindset, like being open to that and growing and learning, because that book definitely challenged me. And I will say, if anybody's a big Dave Ramsey supporter, you're also going to feel like you're going to feel a little bit of like, is this sacrilege or is this gospel, and maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. But it's not his goal to say everyone else is wrong and I'm right. This is what I learned and found to be true. And there's other books that'll talk about the opposite, and that's okay. Like there's no definitive right answer to everything, and that's why certain books exist. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad, awesome book. The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Someone who, I think I'm a morning person, but that guy gets up at 5 a.m. every day, does exercise, meditates, journals. That's hardcore. But I started doing it, and I've been I get up at 6 now, but just that routine really sets you up for success throughout the day. So that's something I'll definitely say. And then Atomic Habits, definitely the one I'm reading right now. And in my first boss's words, changes the game.
Changes the game. We love anything that can change the game, man.
100%.
One thing that I definitely want to say is, for me, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, taking it a step further from maybe outside the book material. I mean, it's touched upon slightly, but just when we think about rich and poor, obviously, you think about that in a financial sense. Mm-hmm. Okay, what is a rich dad doing versus what is a poor dad doing? But for me, I constantly, as I have been growing, this past year I've experienced so much change. A lot of it positive, some of it negative, some of it just difficult. But one thing I always try to ask myself is, when I think of rich and when I think of poor, how do we distinguish the two? And I don't just mean in dollar amounts. I mean, are you rich? Do you have a rich life? I mean, is it fulfilling? Like, you might be successful and you might make a lot of money, but are you doing something that you're seriously passionate about? Are you helping people? Is your family happy? Do you have a tight circle of friends? What do you define as rich, and what do you define as poor? I mean, how's your health? How are your emotions? How's your mental state? I think being rich is so much more of an overarching idea than simply, zeros in your bank account will not make you feel as good as zeros in your bank account plus all that other stuff
Right.
in tandem.
No, you're really hitting the core of what makes humanity, and what makes life so interesting is, everyone says that money won't buy you happiness, but it's true.
I mean, to a certain degree, man. I don't know. I mean, you gave me $10 million. I'm sure I could be pretty happy, but I think that's because I'm a genuinely happy person already.
Right.
Money can't buy you happiness, but in my opinion, it could certainly amplify it.
Well, and I agree with that statement. I heard someone, and it's not from a very profound place. I actually heard this on a stupid YouTube video, but it really, like, you can gain insight from anything, man. And I actually
You
had
really can.
a major life turnaround from an episode of Rick and Morty, and it like totally changed my worldview on life. And
Interesting.
like, I don't want to get super into it, but I like literally went outside and cried for like 45 straight minutes and like reevaluated my life. And it was just like, it was such a dumb, stupid throwaway line, and it would like just hit me. But this guy, he talked about how money doesn't make you happy, but it can remove a lot of the things in life that bring about stress and unhappiness.
Certainly.
And I think that's an interesting take, because my phone doesn't make me happy. There's things that my phone can do that makes me happy, and there's things my phone can do that can make me stressed, but my phone allows me to communicate with people. My phone allows me to do my job. My phone allows me the ability to do so many things that bring about mixed emotions. But yeah, I mean, that was a big shock for me, entering the workforce, being a business owner. Like, my income's gone down significantly when I left the other company to starting my own. And that's not to say that this will be forever, and I'm hoping and working diligently that my income will grow and surpass what I used to be making. But, you give a kid that was expecting $36,000 a year when he graduated being a teacher, making six figures, working 25 hours a week as an entrepreneur, working for some hotshot company that flew him all over the country, like, thought I was on cloud nine.
Right.
Until my relationship suffered, my morals suffered, so many portions of my, I wasn't close to my family anymore. I wasn't talking with my friends. And money is not inherently something that'll bring you peace. It's not evil. That's such a misquoted thing. But it should not be your primary goal above all. I think that's really
Right.
important to I could have $10 million, but if I have no friends, what am I gonna do?
What are you spending your money on?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Ben. I don't think money changes people. I think if you have vices or negative tendencies, that money is just going to enable those. Okay,
100%.
Money won't change you. It will show you and show others who you really are.
Yeah.
Which that, same thing. We're the same age. It's definitely been something that I have found interesting is when I was younger, I always thought how I, wanted to make six figures and wanted to make money and just live this grand life. And it's just been interesting, like actually stepping into those shoes and living that life and reaching that level of income and just, grappling with what that all means, I suppose. And, how, I don't feel any different. I certainly
100%.
don't feel any different.
And I again, I grew up my whole life fantasizing about that, like six-figure, $100,000, like that's when you like made it, like life is good, life is easy. And it was such a shattering experience when I hit it and realized, like, my level of living had risen to the point where, like, I was still poor. Like, I still was like every couple weeks, like, hey, I hope there's more money coming in. Like, hey, I hope like we can handle, like, you know, this isn't. I don't want this to be used as like a flex, but there was I made $10,000 in a week last summer, and instantly I was like, it like hit something, and I was like, awesome. And then a minute later, I was depressed, and I was like, I have all of my bills for the next 4 months covered, all my expenses, food, whatever, rent, car payment, whatever. And then I just like my work rate suffered, my motivation suffered. Like, I wasn't working nearly as hard after that because all of a sudden all my needs were met, and I couldn't get motivated because I was like, well, I don't have to work for 4 months. Like, I could literally do no work for 4 months and be fine. And I'll tell you what, man, I wasted plenty of hours playing video games, hanging, like, and it's not to say that that's wasted time, but it 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 hurt something in me to like hit that goal that I'd had since I was a little kid. I don't know if that like if that sounds right, but like it was something that I didn't imagine hitting until I was like 30 or 40. And when I hit it at 22 and a half, and I was like, that was like the highest goal I'd ever set for myself, and then it was gone.
Right.
Like,
yeah, that's something I talk about with individuals that I work with. Obviously, you want to have like effective money management and all that stuff. But when you grow, there should never be a time when you are letting off the gas until it's truly appropriate. You see it in my industry a lot. It sounds like you went through it yourself, but you make 4 months expenses, 5 months, 6 months expenses, okay, and you're like, hell yeah, even if I'm not going to go blow this or something, I'm not saying you do something irresponsible with your money, but you feel content, you accept. You're like, this is good. I don't have to do anything. This is good. And if you had made the conscious decision to say, rather than growing like this, we're growing like a graph you might look at if you're looking at the market, ups, downs, peaks, valleys. We're growing almost like this. We're up, and then we take a small break and make a circle, and then we're up, and then we do it again. It's kind of taking a second, recognizing, saying, nice job, self. Nice job. That's great work. You're killing it. You have never seen this before. Okay. And then the next day you get back in the driver's seat and you say, it's time to step on the gas again. I just saw something I've never seen before. I think I want to see something that I never thought I ever would, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. And I'm really glad that's something that you do with your clients, because like, I didn't have that structure in place. And so the first thing I did when I made $10,000 in a week is I bought a $2,500 MacBook Pro. I bought an Apple Watch. I bought 2 pairs of AirPods, and all of a sudden, like,
there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that, but I did not adequately secure my future in that. And then all of a sudden I still had this mentality that I had so much money. And then I checked my bank account a month later and I had like $800. I'm like, what happened? Like, I only went out to eat 18 times, like, and so like that was a humbling thing for me, and something that really like plagues a lot of like sales in particular, but just entrepreneurs in general. Like, you need to be consistent, and I'm struggling for the word. You need to be pointed and, have a target and have a goal with sustainability and with long-term thinking, because I know so many sales guys that are like, I'll finance a $60,000 Tesla. It's just one more sale a month. And I'm like, yeah, but that's 60 sales over the next 5. Like, that's like that's a consistent track record that, depending on your industry and depending on the market, like may or may not be viable. I have not been able to
Right.
produce the results in Virginia that I was producing in Illinois, and there's reasons for that, and that's not to like make excuses, but the market's never going to be the same. The market was very, very hot in Illinois, and it's very cold here in Virginia. So that's a difference, and that's something that I'm on the ground, I'm making connections, I'm making referrals, I'm making business. Sometimes the ROI on that's years. And that's not something that's going to pay off my car if, I foolishly do that. I unfortunately have a buddy that had to return his truck that he bought. He got into, the same business as I did, made $15,000 in 2 months. He's like, I'm going to buy a $60,000 pickup truck. Market dried up, didn't make any money for 4 months.
Yeah, man, you really hate to see it. You don't want to see anybody go through that. That's just nobody wishes for that, even on your enemies. I mean,
right.
It's just unfortunate to watch somebody have to struggle. It's just so important, like you said, that you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the market's going to do. You don't know what consumers are going to do. Part of being an entrepreneur is celebrating your small wins. I mean, that's the only way you're going to get through. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. It's the most depressing thing I've ever done. It's so hard, man, on your mental state.
Yeah.
So you have to take those times to celebrate, but at the same time, you can't let your guard down. The second you do, like, they'll eat you up.
100%. I mean, there's so much that goes into being responsible for yourself. And like, now that I'm married, like the idea that like, whether I succeed or fail is not just my burden anymore. Now I have a partner, someone that I have to be open and honest with my expenses, with my income. Like if we fail, it's now not just me, it's my family. And so taking responsibility for that's huge. And that, like, there's so much that goes into responsibility that I think it should be a priority for everyone. And obviously, we've talked for a little bit, Justin. As we get to like wrapping this up, is there any final things you wanna leave people with?
Well, Ben, I will say I'm not too concerned about missing anything. It sounds like we'll be covering a lot more as time goes on. What I would leave people with, I know we were kind of all over the place here, is if you have any questions about being young, I guess, or trying to make it, trying to build your professional life, your personal life, relocating to a new city, managing your finances, being an entrepreneur, anything like that. I think that you and I are just fantastic resources for that. So if you have questions, or if you feel like you don't have questions, you're just interested, I mean, I would say just stay tuned to the podcast. And in the meantime, stay true to who you are and stay true to what you're doing. A lot of times people who are doing the right thing are getting looked at like they're crazy because 9 other people in the room are thinking, there's no way you can do that. That can't be done. Okay. And you're like, yeah, it can. And they're like, no, it can't. So, all that negative pressure that's weighing on you might certainly make you feel like you can't do what you're doing, but you have to try anyways.
100%. Yeah, man, I love it. I love the advice. I love the heart. This will definitely not be the last time we do this. It'll be a little more ironed out the next time for sure.
Definitely.
But one thing that I really want to end on is the scariest part about personal development is starting the journey and having those hard conversations and just being open and honest with people. Some of the most growing, like some of the, like in the times that I experienced the most growth were when I was the most open and honest with people. I've been very blessed with mentors. I've been blessed to grow up in a family that loves me and supports me. Having conversations about your failures and about your insecurities is hard. And, doing that with my wife, like next level intimacy and next level, just transparency in my life. Like, it's not all sunshine and roses, but the joy that comes from seeing the work that you do, materialize is awesome. And then just also like be open to that feedback. We touched on it earlier, like having that open mind and that open heart. Like, I know so many people that like you can make a very valid point based by like facts and evidence, and they'll be like, I hear what you're saying, but I still believe this, even though their viewpoint is now contradictory to everything that's pointing in that direction. It happened to me 3 hours ago. I was talking with this gal, and she's like, I just don't like what you're saying. I don't want to hear it. And I was like, that's okay. Like, you don't have to agree with me, but like the fact that you weren't even willing to like do some introspection and just assume that you are inherently on the money 100% on this topic, like it was just a reminder to me that like everybody's unique, and just having those conversations is huge. One thing I will say, if you guys are interested, at some point there will be a Facebook page for this podcast, but we're all located in the Richmond area, and Justin's an awesome guy. He's a financial advisor at On Point Financial. If you really want some guidance and some steps, contact him over there. And then I'm just the friendly neighborhood solar guy. So if you want solar panels, Justin, any final words?
No, sir. I'm ready for the next one. Those
all right. I love it.
I'm ready for the next one.
I'm trying to think of a movie quote to end the podcast on. How did they end Toy Story?
Oh man, I don't know.
I have no idea. All right. Well, on that terrible, it's been so long. On that terrible disappointment, it's time to end. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.